This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago, and the guy was like, "You're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago." I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details. This episode is brought to you by Read, Write, Own, Building the Next Era of the Internet, a new book from entrepreneur and startup investor Chris Dixon. If you're listening to this podcast, you know what it's like to be part of a community of fans. You value the people who play, perform, and create for everyone. Well, what if there are more ways to support them, more ways to be a fan? And what if you had even more ways to connect with the teams, artists, and other creators that you love? Even though creators make the internet valuable, how much value do they get for their work? Well, that's mostly up to a few big tech companies. Shouldn't creators get more from the platforms they make successful? More value, but also more say, more control, more ownership? Read, Write, Own explores an alternative future for the internet, one that reclaims control for creators, fans, listeners, and gamers, the people who not only use the internet, but make it useful. Read, Write, Own imagines an internet built by us for us. So order your copy of the book today or learn more at readwriteown.com.
Welcome to Through the Ringer. I'm Tate Frazier, and I'm joined, as always, on this Friday morning with Nora. Nora, she's back, and we're talking NFL Week 6 power rankings and a little bit of a teaser here, Nora. I'm actually happy this week. I feel good about the rankings.
I'm so glad, Tate. We do them for you. Everything we do for you.
I have been upset the past couple of weeks if you have not been tuning in. I was fighting the good fight for the Philadelphia Eagles. They went to Los Angeles, where I live. They took over SoFi Stadium. They were spelling it SOPHI and chanting Eagles chants everywhere. So it was crazy to witness. And also, they are now number 3 on the power rankings. I'll go through the power rankings right now, Nora, and then we'll talk about it. The Niners, America's darling team. Everyone has kind of tabbed them as the Super Bowl team to beat. They are the number 1 on the power rankings. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about them a little bit later. We got the Eagles at number 3, like I said. The Bills at number 4, despite being 3-2, they are ahead of their divisional rivals, the Miami Dolphins, who they beat, who are 4-1 with their lone loss being to the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about the number 1 team quickly, Nora. The 49ers. How good are the Niners and how fun are they right now?
Yeah, if I had to pick the Super Bowl again tomorrow, I originally picked the Chiefs to win it, but I would absolutely pick San Francisco. They're just they're absolutely rolling.
Yeah, they got, as they put on the Ringer rankings here, a treasure trove of talent in San Francisco. And it feels like even when guys go down, like Aaron Banks, their left guard, if looked like it could be bad, turns out it's not so bad. So it's good fortune also there in San Francisco. So them at number 1 is great. We got the Chiefs, and the update here is kind of through the tea leaves, right? Taylor Swift is going, as it feels like we've had this conversation before, Taylor Swift is going to the game against the Broncos, which means questionable Travis Kelce is going to play. Is that correct? Am I reading the tea leaves right?
I mean, it seems like he's got to be in there, right? Like she's coming all the way to Kansas City the night after a movie premiere. She was just hanging out with Beyonce in Los Angeles.
Right.
This is some trip.
Yeah. So Travis Kelce, we're expecting him to play, and that'll be something to talk about. So let's talk about your top 5, because I know this is an aggregate of the rankings. Is there anyone that you had in your top 5 that is not in the Ringer's top 5? Is there a team that you think – last week it was the Baltimore Ravens that we believed in. Obviously, they had a tough loss, 7 drops there for Lamar Jackson. They end up losing to their rival, the Steelers. But is there a team outside of this top 5 that you like?
No, this was my top 5.
Oh, wow.
The Ravens – I can't right now with the way that game went. That was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen on a football field. I mean, the number of times that a ball hit a Ravens receiver in just like all 10 fingers and ended up on the ground. I think they are really good. If I had to pick a team that is not in this top 5 that I think could win the Super Bowl right now, I would pick Baltimore. But on sheer principle, I'm not making an argument for them the week after having watched that. They have to get it together.
Yeah, they have to earn your respect, which I appreciate. It's earned and not given on this show, and Nora does not play that. So Baltimore, heed that advice. Be better. Let's catch the football for Lamar Jackson. Let's keep him in the MVP conversation.
I mean, catch the football. Understand when the snap is going off. Like they should have scored 40 points in that game. Steven on our show, I think, said it best, which was that he kept checking in on that game and watching them move the ball really effectively. And then he would go to another game and then go back and the score just wouldn't change. They truly should have won that game by like 20 points and they lost.
It's confounding. Another team that's like that is the Buffalo Bills. They go to London. They face the Jaguars. The Jaguars look like a superstar-laden team, and they look like a real contender in the AFC. I don't know what it is with the water in London, but they like it over there when the Jags are playing. But the Bills, on the other hand, they are confounding, right? There's a lot of people that say they don't believe. Obviously, we've seen with their highs of highs, lows of lows. Where are you right now on Buffalo? Do you still think that they are a team that can go and win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I still believe. I give them not a complete pass last week because they did end up having the Matt Milano injury, which I think matters a ton for them going forward. But in general, the sleepy performance in London was, I think, exactly that. They went over on Friday for reasons I cannot come up with and explain to you. And there was all of this stuff coming out of they did a little press conference, I think on Friday afternoon, and Stephon Diggs is calling Josh Allen sleepyhead, and they're all talking about how jet lagged they all are. And I mean, you tell me, did that look like a jet lagged team in the first half? Especially, I think definitely yes. So I think that we have seen the good Josh Allen far more than the shaky Josh Allen this season in the aggregate. They are still really talented. I wish they were healthier defensively. But I do still think that they're a very good defense. They're third against the pass defensively, which I think is going to help them against anyone they end up having to face in the AFC. They're just a little bit more trustworthy to me than even Miami, which probably has a higher ceiling. But I'm more comfortable with Buffalo right now. So I'm getting over the London loss.
Okay, yeah, we can always try to write off London, and obviously their other loss was against the Aaron Rodgers led Jets who brought the flag out until it all went wrong. So the Bills have had 2 weird games that you can almost wipe away because of the circumstances, which is what you do when you're trying to cape for a team. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do that for the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, we're gonna do that because we saw it passed the eye test for us, so we're gonna let it be. One of the biggest games this week, Nora, is very fascinating. We got the Detroit Lions taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams with only 1 loss, and they're both leading their divisions. Probably not what most prognosticators would have said at the start of the year that this would be a fun game to watch. Whose success has been more surprising, the Lions or the Buccaneers so far?
Well, it depends how you quantify success, right? Whose record is more surprising? Definitely Tampa Bay. There was a genuine quarterback competition between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask this offseason. That team now has the 5th ranked quarterback by EPA completion percentage above expectation composite score, which is my favorite sort of overall quarterback stat. That's Baker, of course, but having that good of an offense coming out of this team that went through that offseason blows my mind. Now, when you actually look at how good the team looks as a whole, Detroit is a much better football team than the Buccaneers right now. So that in and of itself, just the fact that they might be a real Super Bowl contender, still sort of a dark horse by my estimation, but a team that you could make a strong argument could win a Super Bowl. That's pretty surprising. But in terms of just who looking like a division leader shocks me more, it is definitely the Baker Mayfield Buccaneers.
And the fun part of this game, and maybe the fascinating part for some people, was that when Jared Goff went to Detroit and got traded, right, for Matt Stafford, and that all went down, everyone said he was, quote unquote, a bridge quarterback. Baker Mayfield wins the job in Tampa Bay. Oh, he's just a bridge quarterback. But now both these guys, I mean, Jared Goff especially, Jared Goff's one of the best quarterbacks in the league based on all statistical measurements. I don't know what his QBR is, but I think it's going to be pretty good. Just kidding. We don't use QBR anymore. We just joke about it. But Jared Goff has looked great. Baker Mayfield has looked great. It's going to be a fun game to watch those two guys go at it. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about another bridge quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Welcome back to Through the Ringer. I'm here with Nora. And now, Nora, we get to talk about one of my favorite figures in the NFL right now. He is someone that, America, based on the quarterback Netflix series, kind of fell in love with last year, right? I feel like he became more of a caricature. People started to like Kirk Cousins. And you wrote a piece for The Ringer that it is time for the Vikings to trade Kirk Cousins. So if it is time to trade Kirk Cousins, where should he, in fact, be traded before the deadline on October 31st?
Well, so here's what I wrote, which is that it's time for the Vikings to try to trade Kirk Cousins. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to, because it's harder, I think, than meets the eye, just in the sense that quarterbacks of that caliber are not usually just like floating around available in mid-October. But I think Kirk, because of the record in Minnesota, the fact that ever since they brought in Quaicedo Fomensa to be the GM and to run that team, they've been sort of flirting with this rebuild, but they haven't done it because the roster is talented and they had an ability to compete. And then they did go to the 13-4 season. And I give them a lot of credit in that they looked at that record and I think accepted that it was a little bit fake. And so they did the things this offseason, like let Thielen go, let Dalvin Cook go. They did a deal with, in the past, they extended Cousins at first, but they did it in a way where he's going to be a free agent after this season. So I think they have this understanding of the direction that they want to go in. And if you are in a non-competitive season, you'd rather get something for that guy than nothing. And so I think that they should try to do that. Cousins has a no trade clause. Right. So anywhere he ends up, he's going to have to waive that. And then you start to look at the potential landing spots. And I get a little meh because, okay, the Jets, right? I would love to see Kirk Cousins on this Jets team. I'm not sure you can do it without Rodgers getting his hackles raised or whatever you want to say. I'm not sure you can do it in a way where it's not, okay, then Kirk Cousins is the quarterback of the team next year. Maybe they can try, but you're going to have to, beat any other potential offer in terms of draft capital. It's hard to do that if you're only talking about an 8-game stretch or whatever, 10-game stretch. And so I'm skeptical there, and I'm also skeptical because it hasn't happened yet. The Falcons, I think, would be an interesting team. I would really love to see Kirk Cousins and Arthur Smith's offense. The Falcons have, first of all, Desmond Ritter's just coming off the best game he's ever had in that offense. And the Falcons have had a lot of opportunities to go after Lamar Jackson to draft another quarterback, and they just don't do it. So I'm also a little skeptical that they're going to go for it. The Titans, is he enough of an upgrade over Tannehill that you would want to do? I mean, who knows? Tennessee is the most, anyway, the wind blows in terms of, are you going all in to be competitive or are you rebuilding of all 32 of the teams? Washington also could use a QB upgrade.
Where he got drafted, right? In the 5th round back in the day.
Well, and is Kirk going to want to go back there? New owner, new coach, new everything, but he's got a lot of history with that franchise. Maybe it cuts the other way. Maybe they would love to have him. So it just gets complicated, and I struggle to come up with the team that I think is really going to go for it and make it worth Minnesota's while. But I do think that it would be in the Vikings' best interest to try to find a partner.
Yeah, my favorite part of your piece is that you said Kirk Cousins is the NFL's Joe Bowers from Idiocracy. And I think that sums it up well because, his future, you're just not sure. We're just not sure what it looks like. We're not sure where he's going to go. And he is like the definition of, you said from heart rate to IQ to temperament, he is average in every way. So I think we're just not sure where Kirk Cousins ends up. But at the end of the day, it is going to be fun to watch the sweepstakes, even if it doesn't lead anywhere. But one of the teams that was mentioned, and I want to talk about now, the New England Patriots. We said last week that they bottomed out. Boy, did we not know there was another layer. We just kept digging, and the hole gets deeper. And Kirk Cousins is a name that you threw out there. They'd have to move some money around to make it work to get him to be able to fit there. But at the end of the day, is that the sort of Hail Mary move that Bill Belichick and this Patriots team needs to actually light a fire under this team? Because Mac Jones did not look the part, to say the least, this past Sunday.
I mean, look, I don't think Mac Jones is the Patriots quarterback of the future, but I also don't know what Bill Belichick has done right now to have earned the trust and the leeway to go shell out for a new quarterback. I'm not sure if you're Robert Kraft, if you're Jonathan Kraft right now, you would even okay something like that. And it doesn't have anything to do with Kirk. It's just you're going to use cap space, presumably having to think about an extension, draft picks to execute a trade. You're going to use those resources that in the future could go towards a new brain trust, a new whatever, making that roster stronger and more competitive. Bill right now has earned the right to spend that capital to go take a big swing on another quarterback who, I mean, don't get me wrong, Kirk Cousins is a lot better than Mac Jones right now, but another quarterback who has the same fundamental set of limitations in the sense that he needs a good situation around him in order to perform up to his capabilities. I'm not sure I would say okay. I'm not even sure I would say okay if it were a quarterback who's better than Kirk Cousins in some ways. Like, I just think they need to figure out what direction they're trying to go in as a franchise, who's going to be in charge, who's going to be able to make those types of decisions. So that one I am skeptical of.
Yeah, and I feel like Bill Belichick could be making a decision for his own future at this point. Who knows? We could see him coaching the Commanders for all we know next year. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I am excited to see the Bill Belichick Bowl this week. We get Mac Jones starting for the Patriots. We get Jimmy G starting for the Raiders. We get Josh McDaniels versus Bill Belichick. McDaniels, he had a tough Monday night despite the win over the Packers. Is Tom Brady watching this game? And what are Patriots fans doing while they watch this game? Are they just like ripping their eyeballs out? I'm sure Bill Simmons will not have too much fun with this one.
Yeah, Tom Brady is watching the game with popcorn for sure.
For sure. Laughing. Yes.
I mean, man, it's going to be a nice fall weekend in New England.
Go apple picking or something,
yeah,
right? Like this is the time.
That's the proverbial perfect afternoon spent not watching this football team bang its head into a wall. I look, the Raiders are not a great team. Josh McDaniels seems to demonstrate a lack of solid situational football in a new way every week, which maybe that's something to watch for. That keeps it interesting. But I look at this game and it just sort of comes down to, okay, the Raiders have a star on the offensive side of the football, and the Raiders have a star on the defensive side of the football. I have no idea who on the Patriots offensive line right now is blocking Max Crosby. And even the guys, like a Trent Brown, who you would say might have the pedigree to be able to perform in a matchup like that. You watch the tape, there's no effort. There's no interest even in being there. I mean, that thing is that line is a turnstile. And Mac, I think, is so screwed up that it's impossible to tell what is chicken and what is egg. Is he playing terribly because he's just like feels pressure coming every which way? Is he hanging onto the ball too long and therefore he's like, it is so knotted up and hard to determine exactly where the problems are coming from. that even though I don't think this Raiders team is very good, I feel pretty comfortable picking them. So apple picking.
Yeah, go apple picking. Also, Jacoby Myers, his best weapon is now on the Raiders, so he'll get to see him on the other sideline this weekend, which probably won't be fun. Also, Devontae Adams, quickly, should the Raiders be looking to move him before the trade deadline? I know that he has a lot of interest around the league. I mean, there are a lot of teams that would love to have a number one wide receiver with his kind of talent.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions, the Chiefs, I think would be fascinating. Jacksonville, yes. I don't know if they'll do it. I think you're starting to get into a situation where people are coaching and GMing for their jobs. And that's always a tricky balancing act between, okay, if you let go of the really good players, maybe that's best for the long run, but the team's going to get worse. The results are going to get worse. And then maybe Mark Davis makes a spur of the moment decision when something is particularly dire, but he's a great trade chip for obvious reasons. And it would be fun to see him in a more competitive situation.
Well, I think good news for all the Raiders fans out there is that Mark Davis seemingly is just playing slots at the airport. So he's not keeping up with what's really going on right now. So maybe, like you said, Nora, you can have some job security knowing the fact that he's just trying to have some fun playing slots.
Maybe they can advertise on the Sphere, like
right.
all pro receiver available.
Yes.
First round pick wanted.
Maybe two. Maybe we won't too. We'll put it out there.
Maybe two. Aim high. If you're paying that advertising rate, you best be aiming high.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about one of Nora's favorite stories that she needs to debunk in the NFL, and we'll also talk about which game she's looking forward to the most this weekend. All right, welcome back to Through the Ringer. We're here with Nora, and we're talking Week 6. We just saw Thursday Night Football last night, the Chiefs taking on the Broncos, and that's a whole nother conversation. But let's talk about the rest of the games, the slate this week on Sunday and Monday. Is there a game that you have circled, Nora, that you're saying, I have to see this game? I know we talked about the Lions and the Buccaneers, but who's on your board right now?
Yeah, Seahawks-Bengals. Got to see it. I mean, Joe Burrow last week looked far and away the best he has looked this year. And critically, the calf injury seems to have actually gotten better faster than it seemed like it was, faster than I thought it would. All of a sudden, he's scrambling for first downs. They get a real drop back passing game going. Jamar Chase is catching deep balls and scoring touchdowns, and all is right in the kingdom. Can they do it again? And can they do it again against a pretty good Seahawks opponent that I think threw a lot of people off the scent early because they came out so slow, but it has really turned the corner and is playing some good football. So, Big Lou scheming it up on defense. Joe Burrow seemingly looking healthy. We're starting to think about whether or not the Bengals can do what we've seen them do in the past, right? Which is recover from these slow starts. It's unfortunate that they keep happening. This one in some ways is more excusable just because of the injury, even though I do think that they mismanaged it. But this is a good test to see if they can keep that on track and either fight for the division or end up in a wild card situation. We've seen them go far from that place in the past. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, there's been, there are always haters online, and I try to keep up with what the haters are saying. The haters are saying that Arizona's defense is terrible and that Joe Burrow doesn't actually look better and yada, yada, yada. Do we buy into that narrative, I guess we should say there, or we do believe that we saw the Joe Burrow? Right.
So to some extent, right? Like it's more meaningful because they had issues offensively that go beyond just the calf. And so, yes, I would like to see their offense perform well against a better defense. But Arizona's defense has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he could push off last week.
Yeah, right.
And he couldn't push off before. And if you can't do that, You have a whole litany of issues in terms of ball placement, velocity, strength, overall mechanics, yada, yada, yada. The Joe Burrow who was playing, I am positive last week, is a more able and capable quarterback than we had seen at any other point prior in the season. And it really has nothing to do with the opponent. That said, I will, of course, and I think we all, of course, will feel more comfortable with it if they do it against Seattle.
Yeah, and Jamar Chase, I mean, he's a credible source because he did say he was open, and Joe Burrow did find him, and he, in fact, was open at times. So
he is, in fact, always open.
Yes, he is always open 24/7. Go find Jamar Chase. So Joe Burrow doing what he's done since college at LSU with Jamar Chase, just throw him the football, and good things tend to happen. So I like the move, and I like that you doubled down and agree because I won't let the haters win that argument at all. Let's talk about Monday night because we got the Cowboys coming to take on my beloved Chargers. I will be at this game for some of this game before I go back and record Through the Ringer with Cousin Sal. I'm excited to see this Texas Coast offense in person because it's so innovative. It's so brand new.
Tate.
Nora, are
Tate.
you going to stop me? What's happening?
Stop
what
it.
are we talking about?
Not a thing. Stop
Not a thing?
trying to make Texas Coast happen.
Wow.
It is not happening. And I'm speaking to you because you just said it, but much more than that, I am speaking to Chris Collinsworth, and I am speaking more than anyone else to Mike McCarthy.
Oh, wow.
This is like such a con. First of all, schematically, it is a West Coast offense. Like it's not meaningfully different schematically other than just using West Coast principles in order to have a quicker, more fast-paced offensive operation that was designed to limit Dak Prescott's interceptions and has slightly, but it has also made them just more limited and short throw-based and not explosive overall. But that's not even the point. It is not a distinct offensive system. Also, there is another entire football team that plays in Texas closer to the coast than the Dallas Cowboys do. And third, no one calls it the Texas Coast. It's the Gulf Coast. No one has ever said Texas Coast before Mike McCarthy decided to come up with it so that he could pin all of their offensive struggles in the past on Dak Prescott. And it is absolutely like, this is a con. Do not be conned by this man, Tate.
Yeah, it's Bill Walsh. I do know Bill Walsh is actually responsible for the West Coast offense, which as Dak Prescott describes it, I'm looking at quotes from Dak right here. Everything he's saying, Bill Walsh basically says to describe the West Coast offense. So I'm not really sure. Yes, the principles are there, and principally it is the exact same thing by all accounts, except for I guess Dak Prescott is playing quarterback. So maybe that's the big difference to make it the Texas Coast offense. It's very strange, but we also have a little bit of a showdown on Monday night, Nora, because we have the guy in, Kellen Moore who left, the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, who's now with the Chargers, going up against Mike McCarthy. Do we think we get like a cold handshake or did they avoid each other? Like, what's the drama that happens on Monday night between these two?
No. They're going to have a handshake and it's going to be fine because Mike McCarthy he's just playing everyone. This is it's a con. And what does a con man do? He goes out there and he smiles and he gives a handshake and it's, acts like it's all fine. Meanwhile, Kellen Moore's over there doing his job. Justin Herbert's average depth of target, I believe, has gone up. Now, loath as I am to pick the Chargers to do anything consistently and without it all falling apart, that's not a situation I want to put myself in. But that offense is far and away in a better position than Dallas is right now. And I do think it comes down really fundamentally to what McCarthy has tried to do with that unit, which is just not working. It was not a good idea to begin with. It was just based in this total fallacy that Dak throwing interceptions was this like huge fundamental problem that they were going to have to correct when interceptions are pretty fluky. He'd never been a high pick guy in the past. He had one season where they were really high. He made some bad decisions, but completely redoing the way that they operate just around trying to get that number to go down was was like a joke to begin with.
Yeah. Can we talk about Dak quickly? I do feel like the Cowboys faithful, just based on the reaction to the game against the Niners, they seemingly were saying Dak can't take us to the promised land. Seemed to be the thesis of their thoughts. Where do we stand with Dak? And is Dallas kind of a dark horse team to maybe make a run at like a Kirk Cousins? What if Dallas says, well, Jerry's like, I only got so many years left and I need somebody that, I mean, sure, Kirk Cousins turns the ball every first possession of every game, at least the past 3, but otherwise he's leading the league in yards.
Would be hysterical. I mean, look, you are never going to hear me say Jerry Jones would never do that. Right. Anything's on the table with that guy.
The more that we think about it, I think it's possible. I don't want to put too much out there.
They would be so far outside of reality, just so far removed from what is actually happening. Like the idea that you're going to go trade the farm for Kirk Cousins when you have a perfectly good quarterback right there in your offense, and you're going to do all that before, say, I don't know, trying some motion, trying to get that thing to be a little bit less stagnant in the operation there offensively. It doesn't work for me, but yeah,
it doesn't work for me either. I just I want to defend Dak, but he did not give me much help against the Niners.
Yeah, he's not making it easy.
Right. But Dak has shown that he is consistent, and he's been able to, lead the Dallas Cowboys and be that leader in the locker room. So I think it is an overreaction from the public at large, and especially from the Cowboys fans. But that's a conversation for a different day and a different time. One last thing, Nora, before I let you go. Brock Purdy, is he a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Because a lot of people are saying that's the case. And he's 4th best odds to win MVP, Nora. 4th best odds.
Top 5. Don't give me top 5. This is setting. No, he's not a top 5 quarterback. He's not better than Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts.
That's a good list. I think you just rattled off more than 5.
Yeah,
so there you go.
That's actually what I would like to go out on. Is Brock is no better than the 7th quarterback.
And I think that's very fair. I think top 7 is a good list when it comes to the Ringer universe. So we love that. Nora, thanks so much for coming to the show. We appreciate you. We'll have you back next week. And coming up next, we got Kyle Mann, who's going to talk about Chet versus Wemby and a whole lot more NBA preseason storylines. We'll see you then. All right, welcome back to Through the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier, and joining us now, you know him from plenty of places in the Ringer universe, one of them being on One Shining Podcast on Manic Mondays. He is, of course, the great Kyle Mann. Kyle Mann, great to see you, dude.
Great. I think I'm all right. J. Kyle Mann. Either way, I appreciate your praise. It's good to see you.
I appreciate your humility. You know what I mean? I like bringing everybody in with a little great, you know what I mean? Get them fired up a little bit, but I like that. I appreciate it. We need that on this show.
I got to change it up and be humble every once in a while. You're arrogant. You don't want to kind of keep people on their toes. Be like, is he arrogant? Is he humble? I want it to be kind of a mix, so for once, in my life. So anyway,
I like the seesaw approach. We appreciate that here on this show. And we're going to talk about some fun stuff today because usually you and I get on One Shining Podcast. It's college basketball related, right? We're looking through the lens of college basketball, but we're looking through the lens of NBA rookies right now because we got a showdown. I know it's the preseason. There's a lot of people that preach, who cares about the preseason? Don't worry about the preseason. I think the preseason is fun because we get a lot of tinkering. We get a lot of testing. People don't want to show their hand, but we saw 2 giant hands go head to head, and that was Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama. We got the first showdown between these 2 guys. Just your first reaction seeing these 2 battle it out. It felt like, watch this, one-upmanship, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you do, I can do better kind of moment with Chet and Wemby early on.
Yeah, you just felt like you were mainlining the future. Like you just felt like you were like, I don't know. It reminded me of like back in the day with like NBA Live when I would just sort of like create the tallest player I could. I think how tall would it just went as tall as Manute Bol, right? So it was like, okay, you go 7'7", 3-point shooting 90, ball handling 90. And back in those days we'd be like, how preposterous, how delightfully absurd that a guy this skinny but you watch these two, they're trading transition threes. At one point, I think Wemby, typically when we think about guys that big, you think about like, okay, Porzingis, he can step into a three. He can hit a catch and shoot three. Even Bol, which if another person compares Bol to Wemby, I at times have felt like Samuel L. Jackson in that, first Pulp Fiction scene, like where I just want to, point the gun at, not a literal gun, because, I'm not, whatever. But, I was like, say it again. I dare you to say it again. That's how infuriating that was. But you saw off the dribble, there's questions between the two of them, but Chet, for one, looks super strong off the dribble. He just had, I know Zach Collins is your guy, Tate. I know you guys have a history. You dapped in Vegas, your buddies. I don't even know. Yeah. You may have had drinks together. I don't know. It was Gonzaga on Gonzaga crime. Chet had Zach Collins in prison. Like, he was just cooking him. He blocked his shot a few times. Zach had to be thinking, I thought I was big brother. Little brother has kind of, surpassed me here a little bit. But it was wildly, wildly impressive, the athleticism and the skill between those two guys.
Yeah, and if you look at the Rookie of the Year odds right now, Wemby is the favorite at plus 130. Chet Holmgren at plus 270. Of course, Chet was out last year, so he counts as a rookie this year. Scoot Henderson at plus 300. Then the next closest person on the board is Brandon Miller at plus 2,300. So it's basically a three-man race. We saw the two guys, Chet and Wemby. How much is this going to be a storyline throughout the season, just these two guys battling each other and trying to kind of assert themselves as the future of the NBA at some level?
It's been kind of coming for a little while. Earlier in the offseason, right, I was thinking, I had the thought, you got to pull the trigger, when you have the thought, because I was like, people aren't talking enough about this rivalry. I feel like these two are like sizing up to be really, really great contemporaries, yin to the yang here. It dates back, to the FIBA U19 championship game when those two went off against each other and played against each other. And they were an interesting matchup back then because Wemby dwarfed him, obviously was much bigger. Chet is no small guy, but we saw Chet multiple times beat him off the dribble at his size. He got into his body, and they are just sort of an interesting. I don't know how much they're actually going to go head to head, honestly, because it was interesting how they were using Wemby. I don't know if you paid attention to this, but he was off ball a lot. He was sort of in that roamer position, and he wasn't near the basket. I don't know if they're doing that to kind of protect him and keep him out of foul trouble. But yeah, I mean, these two teams, Wemby is going to accelerate things for the Spurs. We know that. OKC is knocking on the door. They might be ahead of schedule this year. They might be ready to compete this year in a real way. They both size up to be good, I think, in the next 5 years, and that's just really exciting to watch.
And we get a Texas-Oklahoma rivalry, right? So that's always good for the sport and just for those two states because they like to rival with each other. That's just what happens there. And also, I found this interesting. They asked Wemby about his relationship with Chet, if he had a relationship with Chet at any level, and he simply just said no. So it doesn't seem like there's much love lost between the two guys, and they're both very competitive. So I think this is great for the NBA, right? This is something that the preseason showed us a little bit of what the future looks like.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, here that people should not underestimate at all is, I won't say the word because I know we're on TV. Both of these guys are, what's the word? They are pricks. Like, they are like not likable guys, but these are like right. These are very, very competitive dudes. These are dogs. Both of these guys,
NBA holes, right? Yes, that's what we call them, NBA holes.
Yeah, they both, the cliche, they both got that dog in them. They both are very, very competitive, very chippy. People always look at Chet and they're always just like, what is this skinny dude? What's this skinny white boy going to do in the NBA? Chet's been dealing with that for years. Like, you don't think that like in the high school ranks, people saw, Gumby out there blocking shots and hitting threes on the Steph Curry highlight video. Everybody thought that they were going to try him. Lots of people have, and lots of people have learned the lesson. So, both, and another thing, Tate, that really sticks out to me is, despite their skinniness, and this is something that really was promising for me for them coming into the draft, respectively, both of them, they would play through contact and still make skill plays. Like on the very first play of the game, you saw Wemby drive baseline off the dribble. Not seeing many 7'4" guys do that, number one. But he did a little shovel pass in traffic to Collins, even though he was being physically pressured and off balance. Once he starts to get strong, he and Chet both, you're going to start to see that skill. He's going to be able to leverage that skill level even more. So it's both of those guys have that in common. And I think Chet, we've seen what a year of strength has done for him because he looks great. He looks physically great. He was even flexing after that M1. Yeah.
I know, and I liked how he kind of was reacting to what Wemby was doing. So I appreciated that. But enough about the future. Let's talk about the present, because those guys will be a topic of conversation for the next decade. Let's talk about right now. Let's talk about AD, because Anthony Davis is one of those freaks as well. He was supposed to be the best player in USA basketball right now, presently, but some people would argue that he's not quite there. But right now, Darvin Ham is asking him to take at least 6 threes a game, which is a very creative player, like you were talking about before with NBA 2K, like a mission and an objective for the season to do. What does that offense look like if AD's taking 6 threes a game? Is that actually sustainable? And how much are we going to enjoy AD differently if he's going to actually play at the 4 this year?
Well, his career high is 3.5, if we're looking here and then at let's see what the per 36 for that is. It can't be very high. I know, in terms of him spotting up and shoot, per 36, his career high, same year, 3.7. So he plays a lot. That adds up. His spot up career highs were both his last 2 years with New Orleans. It's been kind of, he's 30 years old now. I've watched a lot of AD. This is not, this is a pretty, I could say I can stand on the confidence of having seen a pretty good sample size. The shot, he's one of those guys that I don't know if you've ever known anyone like this, that they really look the part when you watch them shoot the ball. You're like, this just doesn't add up. It's kind of similar with what's going on with Cade Cunningham, where it's the shot looks good. What's going on? What is it? Your eyes watching the ball and you need to be watching the rim. What's the tweak that's not physical, that's not working out here? I don't know how much. I don't have a ton of confidence in him shooting. What do you think the target percentage is for him shooting threes? I mean, 35%? Is that the level it needs to get to for it to be justified? Because if I'm the defense, if Anthony Davis is taking 6 threes a game and he's shooting 31, 32%, his career high in percentage, 34. I mean, if he hits that, and he's taking 6 of them a game, that's pretty terrifying. But if he's shooting sort of his career average, which is 30, I'm putting my hands together and saying, thank Jesus, thank Xenu, thank whoever that he's not rolling to the rim constantly, because he's the best lob catcher ever. So I don't know. I guess it comes down to how much rim pressure do you think that they're going to get elsewhere? I don't know. I'd throw that back to you, and that seems like that would have to be the counter to that, because if he's outside. If I'm the defense, I'm putting my hands together. It's kind of like the Giannis thing. If he wants to take 6 of them a game, that's great,
That's what as soon as I saw that story from Darvin Ham, I'm thinking everybody in the league when it comes to the Western Conference is saying, thank God. I mean, the most damning thing about AD's game is that rim pressure and that lob threat. So if he's willing to only want to run from 3-point line to 3-point line, we'll take that all day, every day. You know what I mean? So when I saw that story, that was my first reaction as well. So, I mean, if he does shoot a career high 35%, I guess like you said, you can justify it, but we'll accept AD shooting 3 for 10 from 3 and taking away 10 possessions from him actually trying to get downhill to the rim every single day.
If he shoots 6 threes a game at 35% based on his defensive impact too, if you look at his minutes per game, and he plays about 34 per game, he's going to be all NBA. Not that he wouldn't otherwise, but I mean, that's going to be a career year for him. I mean, it's so, it'd be fun to see. But I'm with you. I would lean towards, if he wants to shoot him, I'm sending Darvin. If I'm Frank Vogel, if I'm whoever, I'm sending Darvin Ham flowers. I'm saying, love the job you're doing this year. I love the love the PR.
I love the innovative approach there, Darvin. Yeah, we'll see you when you come to Denver. We'll have fun with that. So there you go.
So impressive. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about where will James Harden end up and some more rookies to watch in the preseason. All right, welcome back to Through the Ringer. We're here with Kyle Mann. And Kyle Mann, we have to talk about the elephant in the room in the NBA. He's one of the best scorers of all time, but he's also someone that seemingly is never happy where he is. That, of course, is James Harden, the enigma himself in NBA circles. Some people think he still has great value. Other people say not so much. We don't know where we stand, but we've also heard mixed reports. Some people in Philadelphia said he's been great when it comes to team leadership so far. Some people have said that he's just basically been, off to himself. Who knows really what to believe? But my question to you, Kyle Mann, is what is the best situation for James Harden right now in his career? Is it staying in Philadelphia, or is it forcing himself to somewhere like the Clippers, which seemingly is his preferred destination?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to his willingness to his willingness to sort of be malleable in terms of his role. This was always going to be a tough situation just because I always called it the glacial marriage between him and Embiid. Both of them, Embiid is a guy who has a struggle, and it's especially made tough just because Embiid's not a hard roller all the time, so he doesn't exactly fit what he wants to do. He really wants to pop to that 15-foot left elbow and then operate out of his ISO. It was always going to be kind of a tough pairing to get the movement that they were going to need to sort of maximize, the toughness, the difficulty of guarding this team. At this point, though, man, I mean, he kind of embraced, I don't need to score quite as much. I can lean into the playmaking and things like that. It becomes a question of, is he willing to do any more of that stuff? Or can you get creative with like inverting it and playing? I've always wanted to kind of see James Harden as the screener. I think that's pretty interesting because of his little floater game, because of him popping and hitting threes. Maybe you just take the ball out of his hands and lessen the sort of luxury that teams have of like loading up defensively against him. I think that's another thing that's pretty interesting. The Clippers on that front are pretty interesting. If you think about inverted pick and rolls between like him and Kawhi, him and Paul George, all that stuff is interesting. I think you're going to continue, though, to run into the same issues no matter where he goes. And that is just how willing is he to play in a situation where the ball touches his hands significantly less. And my confidence level in that is pretty low at this point based on what we've seen.
The what if with the Clippers is always interesting with Ty Lue there as well, because he seemingly has figured out how to put matchups that you want to see in favor of the Clippers in the playoffs. So that'll be fascinating. We'll see what happens with Harden. Quickly, let's talk about a couple rookies that have impressed you so far. I know one of them is Jaime Jaquez Jr. with the Miami Heat. What have you seen from him? You and I both love Jaime, and he looks good so far.
Oh yeah, man, been all over Jaquez for a while. I honestly, I was texting somebody and saying, I feel proud. I don't know if that's even appropriate. I don't know if that's allowed. I guess you're proud of. He just seemed like somebody. He just seemed to me like somebody who was going to come in. He wasn't going to hurt you with mistakes early on. He's a no waste player. He comes in, he doesn't have any kind of delusion about like, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. He just knows how to play basketball, and he really has incredible high feel. You watched his pace in Summer League just right out of the box. He was just ready to roll. He looked great. Same thing the other night. He came in and like had a couple pump fakes and scored. He did a great pass. These are just kind of the things that he adds to the seams of your offense. And he does that he defends his ass off. He's a smart team defender. I was telling Bill that like, I think one of the things that really excites me the most is Jaquez absorbs the information in his environment really, really well. And if you think about the intelligence level of the Miami Heat, they even got the jerseys now. It's become a cliche, the Heat culture thing. If you think about all those things and what's available to him to soak up, I am really encouraged and excited to see what he's going to do with all that information, because I think he's going to capitalize and grow.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys. He's just a good basketball player, and he's plug and play. And Miami is a place that will embrace that kind of mentality. The other team, quickly, I want to talk about was the Denver Nuggets. I love their rookie class. Julian Strawther is one of those guys that can just get buckets. Hunter Tyson is really impressive. What do you like about the defending champs and what they were able to build in the draft?
I think they sneakily are one of the more interesting rookie situations in the league because of what they're attempting to do. You've got to think in the aggregate, they're thinking, okay, Bruce Brown is, he's he's almost become overrated, like to the point like I love him to death, but it's like it's got to kind of tilt back a little. Everybody loves him. The secret's out, and Indiana appropriately went and got him, but they're trying to import this through older rookies. Jalen Pickett was, I think, 24 years old last year. He was one of the old, he was an old guy on Penn State, big time scorer, but he has almost this like Andre Miller way that he plays. I'm not doing the 1-to-1 comp thing, but he has this very physical Mark Jackson-y, Andre Miller-y kind of way that he burrows into the league and can see over smaller guards and kick the ball to the top of the key. Question for him will be, can he do that with their first lineup?
Yeah, and the rookies look good in the preseason. So it's been fun to watch. Preseason basketball is on. The NBA is right around the corner. Kyle, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. We're very excited about NBA basketball being back, and we'll have you on soon.
Thanks for having me, Tate.